Come, let us explore the myth of loving self before others. This evening's lesson is drawn from a good-hearted question found on Reddit. The question begins, you must love yourself before you can love others? Have you encountered this? Has meditation increased your self-compassion? Has it increased your love or compassion for others? This is an excellent question, and I'm glad you asked it. So, this is also, let us explore what's really going on here. There are two types of spirituality. There is the pseudo-spirituality of patriarchy and the true spirituality of matriarchy. Patriarchy is so common and so widespread that its theories and assertions are now considered to be self-evident and requiring no evidence whatsoever. But how could that work? Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, but not in the fun, tingly way. Therefore, it should not surprise us that the majority of people are prone to patriarchy, stuck in the habit being rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. Now, here's the weird thing. When we apply this worldview to meditation, what we wind up with is teachers insisting that we must practice active concentration and active analysis. And they give it fancy names like samatha and vipassana, or jhana, and the like. fMRI studies have revealed that the only way to practice these two behaviors is by relying upon discrete mechanisms in our brain, such as those found within our medial prefrontal cortex and our dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. Now, listen, the prefrontal cortex is Jim Dandy. If you want to compare, contrast, calculate, sort, analyze, edit, then this is the part of the brain that'll serve you the most. However, it's like a Stradivarius, and it can be overworked. And when that happens, our amygdala gets triggered, the seat of aggression and anxiety, which will only increase our propensity or strengthen our propensity to be rigid and controlling. Can you see how this can build a negative spiral? So when our controlling so no matter how much we concentrate on love or analyze love, it's not going to increase our love, maybe an analog of love, but it's going to actually undermine love by exciting our amygdala. So when these people with this worldview speak about love, they speak of love from a place of scarcity and from a place of contrivance, and that they have to gradually build up to loving others like it's some profound Herculean effort. Like they're in a gym and they're going to start off with a 1 pound bench press, and maybe next month they'll do a 2 pound bench press. But we are already capable of doing much more than that. Let's go back to Sturgeon's law, shall we? So if 90% of the folks are into the pseudo-spirituality of patriarchy, then the minority will be into the true spirituality, of matriarchy, wherein we are flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind, with an emphasis on being flexible and loving and laid back. So let's return to that image of the brain. And let's go back one. So now that we've determined that the team of prefrontal cortex and amygdala does not serve us well on the journey of love, let's discover what will. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we are wired to effortlessly and automatically access our sympathetic nervous system found in the middle third of our spinal cord. This sympathetic nervous system has evolved to help us to perceive in a very special way, to help us to perceive vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. Can you see how this is the opposite of being rigid and controlling? We are wired to perceive sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, including emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. We are wired to perceive entire spectrum of phenomena, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the painful to the pleasurable, from the boring to the interesting, but also from the glorious to the grotesque. This can feel a trifle overwhelming, as if we're being asked to sip from a fire hose. Fortunately, every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we are wired to automatically access our parasympathetic nervous system, found in both our lower third as well as the upper third of that same spinal cord. This parasympathetic nervous system is already wired for physical relaxation as well as mental release. Practice this for at least 5 minutes every 12 hours or so, and you will find that your amygdala calms down. You will find that your anterior cingulate gyrus is excited. That which functions as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy, compassion, and love. This is why great spiritual luminaries such as the late Tulku Thondup insisted that the highest love is not the product of the contrivance of active concentration and active analysis, but rather that the highest love is spontaneous and uncontrived. The spontaneous and uncontrived byproduct of perceiving and releasing. We are wired for this. Now let us explore a rather fundamental question. What is love? From the Buddhist point of view, compassion and love are simple. The spontaneous yearning to diminish others' suffering is compassion. The spontaneous yearning to enhance others' well-being is love. And once again, it is the natural function of our anterior cingulate gyrus. Jesus didn't invent it. Buddha did not invent it. Lao Tzu did not invent it. It's as old as complex life forms. Well, but won't it make us crazy to want to help others while not being able to do so? Well, that's patriarchy talking. Because the more we practice mindfulness and meditation, the more our choices, utterances, and deeds will flow with the effortless effort of love's centered spontaneity. No, not its scattered spontaneity, but its centered spontaneity. From this flow, we meet needs gently, spontaneously, effortlessly. Whether they be our needs, a neighbor's needs, a stranger's needs, a so-called enemy's needs. We respond to needs effortlessly, in a centered manner, surprising ourselves with the serendipity and the timing and the logic that we didn't even know we had access to. To borrow an idea from Carl Gustav Jung, it is as if we are using our access to the collective unconscious that has always been there, but that we have been trained to ignore. So let's tie this up in a big red bow. We're wired to breathe. We breathe in, we breathe out. If we don't breathe, we die. Every time we breathe, we have the opportunity to notice and release. Usually we live in opposition to these functions, but every time we silently, mentally, and passively recite the demonstrative pronoun this during an inhalation, our clown car of a brain cannot help but cooperate with our sympathetic nervous system. Similarly, every time we silently, mentally, and passively recite the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation, this three-ring circus of a brain cannot help but cooperate with our parasympathetic nervous system. Doing so dampens our anxiety and aggression, increases our empathy, love, and compassion, and empowers us to flow from centered spontaneity. Oh, I've got essence of sandwich on my phone. I think it could be quite lovely if together as a team we chanted and meditated together after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that you won't have to. Welcome, my friends, to meditate like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. So let us begin. So I think it could be quite fun if we practiced four meditations, each one approximately 15 minutes long. Before we start each meditation, let's chant a verse from the vast expanse of Diamond Mind, composed about the 6th century by Prahe Vajra, translated recently by Yeshe Donden, adapted and amplified by yours truly. Please, together as a team, let us chant the fifth verse 3 times. Supreme wisdom is difficult to realize, except by way of wisdom itself. Dependence on others is merely notional, since bliss actually arises naturally from within. During this second run-through, I'd like to offer some commentary. Supreme wisdom is difficult to realize except by way of wisdom itself. Well, what does that mean? To answer that, we got to return to our diagrams. If we try to concentrate or analyze our way to wisdom, the best we can do is either use superstition or pseudo-intellectuality, or both, to come to only an analog of wisdom. And that's after great years of study and hard work. Great irony is that according to the penultimate passage of the Satipatthana Sutta, we can master Buddha's transcendental wisdom by simply practicing mindfulness and meditation for as little as 7 years, or 7 quarters, or 7 months, or 7 fortnights, or 7 weeks, or even 7 days. Let's continue. Dependence on others is merely notional, since bliss actually arises naturally from within. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm unfamiliar with the vocabulary word notional. I think it means fanciful. So I'm going to look that up real quick on the good old Google. Alright, so having explored that bad boy, let's return to... Here we go. So I'm going to find a synonym here. Dependence on others is merely an idea, since bliss actually arises naturally from within. Remember, patriarchy is about elitism, matriarchy is about egalitarianism. Patriarchy says, man, you can't learn unless you are a slave to your master, and you ain't enlightened unless your teacher says you are, regardless of whether they're enlightened or not. That is not the way of the Buddha. There is no secret handshake. There is the idea of the Tathagata Gadaba, the Buddha essence, the Buddha nature. Everyone born with lungs, everyone born with a central nervous system, everyone born with a sympathetic and a parasympathetic nervous system is wired to perceive and release, and as such unleash a horde of empathy. We are already wired for enlightenment. There's no quest to set out on. There is no magical artifact to find. We just need to cooperate with the natural processes of our body-mind. Having explored this, now let us perform the third recitation without commentary. Supreme wisdom is difficult to realize, except by way of wisdom itself. Dependence on others is merely an idea. Ah, that's where the accent is. Since bliss actually arises naturally from within. So, I love the idea of us performing 4 collections of 144 breaths. To keep track of our first collection, here's what I recommend doing. Let us gingerly rest the great knuckle at the base of our right index finger upon the tip of the left index finger, and then rest both these hands palms up in our lap. Doing so will help real or imagine subtle energy to coalesce at our crown. Of course, the question remains, how on earth are we to count 144 rounds, which is simply one inhalation followed by one exhalation? How are we to count 144 of those on just 8 fingers and 2 thumbs? Well, the first step is to simply break it down to 12 sets of 12 reps. Well, we're still being asked to count to 12 on 4 fingers and 1 thumb. How are we going to do that? Welcome to the wild world of Bengali crease counting. During each inhalation, in addition to silently, mentally, and passively reciting the demonstrative pronoun this, we're also going to advance the tip of our right thumb. Let's practice together right now. Beginning with our little finger. And that is how we count to 12 on just 4 fingers and 1 thumb. Doing it on our right hand, we count reps. Doing it on our left hand, we count sets. However, on your left hand, I recommend beginning with the index finger and moving towards the little finger. All right, giddy up. If you've just tuned in, allow me to remind you that the most efficient way to practice mindfulness is to silently, mentally, and passively recite the demonstrative pronoun this during each inhalation to facilitate us perceiving in a manner that is vulnerable, passive, visceral, random, and fleeting. The most efficient way to practice meditation, however, is to silently, mentally, and passively recite the one-syllable verb ease during each exhalation to facilitate physical relaxation as well as mental release. let's chant the sixth verse, or this sixth verse, 3 times. And yet the miraculous is not beyond our recognition, due to an intuitive insight into the natural state. Our innate capacities and spiritual powers come to the fore naturally from within our own inner depths. And yet the miraculous is not beyond our recognition, due to intuitive insight. So let's start right here. We are already wired by evolution to notice some things are harmful and move away from them, and notice other things are beneficial and be drawn to them. We don't need to act in a controlling way or a Machiavellian way. Simply noticing aversions and relaxing, simply noticing avarices and relaxing, primes the pump of the miraculous. Due to intuitive insight into the natural state. Our innate capacities and spiritual powers come to the fore naturally from within our own inner depths. The more we practice the mindfulness and meditation that is in cooperation with our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, the more our choices and our utterances and our deeds will flow with the effortless effort of love's centered spontaneity. No, not love's scattered spontaneity. Love's centered spontaneity. And now for our third and final recitation this evening of this verse. And yet the miraculous is not beyond our recognition, due to intuitive insight into the natural state. Our innate capacities and spiritual powers come to the fore naturally from within our own inner depths. Now that we have come to this evening's second collection of approximately 144 breaths, let's keep track of it by simply resting the great knuckle at the base of our right middle finger gingerly upon the tip of the left middle finger, and then resting both these hands palms up in our lap, thus helping our subtle energies to coalesce at our heart. Together as a team, let us chant the seventh verse for three repetitions of the seventh verse. Real meditation as effortless letting go in the true condition. This true condition never appears to us as something which can be seen. Striving to grasp it, we prevent the recognition of its true nature. Real meditation is the effortless letting go in the true condition. Notice the phrase effortless. We cannot actively concentrate or actively analyze our way to wisdom, but we can passively notice and viscerally relax our way into metaphoric omniscience. This true condition never appears to us as something which can be seen. Striving to grasp it, we prevent the recognition of its true nature. Real meditation is effortless letting go in the true condition. This true condition never appears to us as something which can be seen. Striving to grasp it, we prevent the recognition of its true nature. Having come to the third collection of 144 breaths, we can simply, to mark this third collection of 144 breaths, we can simply rest the great knuckle at the base of our right ring finger gingerly upon the tip of our left ring finger, resting both these hands palms up in our lap. Doing so, we could find that our subtle energies coalesce behind our navel. We come to the fourth and final verse recitation of this evening's practice. Nor can the supreme secrecy of the primal continuum be revealed by hearing about it, nor can words reveal its nature even in the barest measure. Ooh, my goodness. Okay. Excuse me. So, second time. Nor can the supreme secrecy of the primal continuum be revealed by hearing about it, nor can words reveal its nature even in the barest measure. Secrecy is not here used here literally, but figuratively, as was explored in a previous verse. An understanding of the wisdom of letting go is not arrived at through the effort of concentration or analysis. That actually will undermine our progress. Instead, by accessing our sympathetic nervous system during our inhalation, that we might perceive vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly, we sidestep concentration. And by silently, mentally, and passively reciting the one-syllable verbies during our exhalation, we access our parasympathetic nervous system that we might physically relax and mentally release, thus sidestepping the folly of active analysis. Nor can the supreme secrecy of the primal continuum be revealed by hearing about it, nor can words reveal its nature even in the barest measure. I could tell you that as we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel even a little bit less solid, less permanent, less defining. Those are just words, and they pale before the profundity of simply playing with this exercise, these silent and mental recitations in harmony with our inhalation and exhalation. Therefore, in light of our fourth collection of 144 breaths, let us keep track of it by simply resting the great knuckle at the base of our right little finger, gingerly resting it upon the tip of our left little finger, and resting both these hands palms up in our lap. Doing so helps our subtle energy to coalesce in our lower abdomen. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10.5 hours, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's early meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.